All right, so I wanted to talk about something today. I'm sure everybody knows who Alfre Woodard is. If you don't even know her name, 100% you know her face. So, everybody grew up watching her, right? So there's this show in the early 90s called Any Day Now, and that stars Annie Potts, who was in Ghostbusters and all that stuff in the early 90s. So I grew up watching that, and that was one of my favorite shows growing up. I was real young, and growing up watching Alfre Woodard, I would always remember her in that show. Like every time she was on something, I'd always flash back to that show because, like I said, it was one of my favorite shows. I mean, the topic was a lot more mature and adult for someone my age, but I was always ahead of everybody in my age group, so I was able to really get into the show and understand it. So basically the show was about two friends, one black, one white, and they would just show the differences of them growing up and them being adults. But one being black, would have to go through a whole ton of other things than the one that was white. So that's basically the whole premise of the show, showing the comparisons between the two sides. So like I said, every time I would watch something with Alfre Woodard, I would always remember that show because I'm like, that's the first thing I ever seen her on, and I love that show, and I liked her ever since then. So a couple years ago, when she first was on, I first saw her on Luke Cage. The show flashed in my head again. I'm like, and I watched the whole season before I looked it up. So I watched the season, and then I went, you know what? I said, let me go look that show up. I couldn't remember the name, so I just typed in Alfre Woodard and looked through her films and TV shows, and I didn't see anything that remotely was close to that show. But I remember Annie Potts was in it, so I searched Annie Potts too, and then scrolled down and I saw the show, and it was called Any Day Now. But to my, whatever, it wasn't Alfre Woodard at all in that show. It was actually Lorraine Toussaint, which completely threw me, because for years and years and years and years, I would always, every time Alfre Woodard was in a movie, I would always flash back to that show, and nobody could tell me that she wasn't on that show, because it was it's vivid. Like when you remember something, especially when it's tied to a certain point in your life, or it's tied to a certain feeling, or something like that, you remember it very vividly. And that's the thing with a lot of these Mandela effect things or theories or whatnot, is that you yourself remember them so vividly. The person can come to you themselves and be like, I was never on there, and you won't believe them, because no, I remember you on there. So that completely threw my head for a spin, because I'm like, there's no way it was not Alfre Woodard, because but yeah, this timeline is Lorraine Toussaint, however the hell you say her name. But yeah, that was my little Alfre Woodard Mandela effect thing going on. But I don't know if you know that show, if you remember that show, let me know what you guys think.